Can you guys hear us out there? Andy's not here, so you guys have your reading checks, right?
Yeah, ready.
Yeah, you can do it. You can try to
Yeah,
match your
emergency.
speed.
You can't match my speed.
You're close though.
Here, I'll do checks. Ready?
No, wait a minute. I'll reach you. I'll reach over. So he comes back.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
William Faria, 738.80. Kristen Patch, 454.91. Christine Belanger, 678.41. Kevin Nealand is $1,273.67. Francis McNinnis is $685.21. Joyce Kegel is $352.
And the total of $4,183 even.
I got the checks. Ready? George Abel, $1,257.99. Eleanor Cherry is $979.99. Andrew Antromovich is $728.80. Suzanne Benoit is $623.36. Andrea Bickham is $560.87. Joe Bird is $803.01. Mark Brightman is $384.69. Gloria Buendia Becerra is $475.41. Ken Christensen, $738.80. Karen Clement is $1,035.21. Do you have to sign anything?
I signed
There
it.
you go, thank you, sir. Michael Dame is $706.46. Jocelyn Dennehy is $26.78. Kiki Dennis Wall is $98.76. Tracy Flinders is $397.55. Pamela Frederick is $143.14. Robert Gagnon is $605.81. Kenneth Gauthier is $941.06. Warren Graham is $289.16. Andrew Gray is $570.34. Kip Kaiser $756.19. Stephanie Lazak Roto is $264.57. Heather Lindsay is $591.14. Bob Montagueria is $831.15. Colin Marquis is $30.14. Joyce Miller is Floyd. Rachel Mowbray is $49.87. Wayne Robinson is $793.75. Chris Washwell is $179.72. Sean Seeley is $305.72. Jeremy Smith is $545.91. Katrina Tennant is $361.09. Phyllis Thompson is $462.53. Livia Wall is $49.87. Dan is $1,224.16. Janice Weirs is $724.99. Jeremy Worcester is $599.91. Daphne Wass is $659.75.
For a total of $19,797.65.
Yours says medical, right? Total is $23,980.65. You guys ready? Airgas, $33.75. American Red Cross is $500 even. Ben's Uniform is $92. Roundtree Medical is $37.74. Center for Occupational Health is $1,665.45. Citizens Bank is $503.79. C&M Cleaning, $1,336.67. Dwayne Demerit, $600 even. Eversource is $17.36. Exeter Hospital is $614.34. First Light is $224. Great American Financial, $244. Great American Financial Service Corp. $317.09. Compton is $842.13. Health Trust Inc. $2.75. Health Trust Inc. again $12.50. Industrial Production Services $850. LCB Transport $340. Mary E. Bartlett Memorial Library, $17,358.75. Mitchell Municipal Group is $553.95. George Susi is $260.99. The SAU 16 Treasurer is $201,651. Seacoast Business Machines is $308.06. State of New Hampshire Department of Safety is $48.25. UniFirst Corp is $40.89. Valak is $279.56. Verizon Wireless is $75.90. Waste Management is $4,760.45.
For a grand total of $233,347.37.
I'll have something to say.
Rec checks, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rec checks. Any overtime? We don't have the overtime. No more CDs, huh?
I'll stop by again.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we took in $954,000, jar, not surprisingly, is taxes. Impact fees keep coming. The Swayze number of 201 is the second half of the last payment of the fiscal year. The new fiscal year starts next week. Well, July 1st.
Any idea on that number?
Yes.
Oh.
Should we hold on for
You
church?
should definitely hold on. The co-op number is something on the order of $798,000 for the first couple of months. And then it drops all the way down to 600.
All the way down.
Okay.
Swayze number is 400 a month versus 370. We've been paying 185, so twice that is 370. Right? So it's an even 200 twice each month. They adjust the number halfway through the year, and typically it goes down, but when they start off with a bang,
Okay.
got to pay the interest on the new bond, you know?
That comes up this year, right?
Yeah, that's already started.
Just the interest.
And then next year we pay that.
At any rate, because of the income from the taxes, $690,000 will be added to our unrestricted balance. And yes, once things stabilize a bit. At this point in the year, I have to time the transfers to the money market account, because I tend to be faster than the checks clear the bank. So I have to be a little cautious. But yes, because most of that $20,000 in interest is from CDs, not from money market.
Right.
And thank you for that.
I appreciate it.
$69 tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. I
Good night,
appreciate
sir.
it. Mr. Kipp, come on down. Do we have a motion for the minutes?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I passed because I wasn't here.
I don't think I was wrong.
Staying.
We didn't do any last week. So we're good. One abstention. One MI. Reading glasses, there you go.
Ah, there we are.
What's up with the small print?
Saving money.
Show comments.
Oh, okay.
Saving money, I thought that's what it
I didn't want to reprint them.
Okay.
First up, let's see, 2 Sunset Lane, 3 Ponds LLC, this is finishing area in the basement and dwelling. 3 Balsam Lane, Matthew and Gina Weiser, and this is for a underground pool. Inn Road Circle. Scott and Jennifer Buchanan, and this one is for a re-roof. Well, actually, a new roof. So this one, I guess we're just going to say it's 3 ponds, and it's 3 Ponds LLC. And this is a demolition permit to take down a garage, a modular home, and an existing home. So we were now notified.
Okay. Are they doing, did they have to do the asbestos test or?
The asbestos samples were taken and the paperwork was attached.
Anything that needs to be inspected or not? Obviously asbestos and asbestos.
There was none found.
So they're good with me.
So now that everyone's signed, you would ask if I would check back into 421, the Middle Road, which I went out to the site and took a couple measurements, took an eye line, a vertical line, shows up on the site plan, looked at the site plan, and there seems to be encroachment onto the firehouse property 419. Vehicles were parked over what I observed to be the line, and the business is operating its stockpiles over the setback, well over the setback. So they are not in compliance.
So we should be issuing a cease and desist letter as soon as possible.
He wrote a letter. Didn't you write a letter and give him 30 days to answer?
Last fall.
Oh, that was last year?
Last fall. They moved their items, and now they've just come back and done it again.
Oh, that's fine.
It's time.
Oh.
Yeah, let's not mess around.
So did you talk to them when you were out there or not?
I did not. However, after I left, the vehicle moved back.
That's just.
The one in
gave us
your
a
mail,
report, right?
I referenced the August 2018 request.
Yeah.
Are those lines marked, our property lines out there marked?
On the plans, it indicates that there are bounds and pins and so on. I don't see them. I have to go by the physical things on the plan as well as that.
This has been going on for a long time.
So I have made the determination where the line is as I see it. If they dispute that, then they can dispute that.
Okay.
So you're gonna send another letter to them?
Well, I think it's time for the board to act up.
I think so.
In fact, I'll make a motion that we send a cease and desist letter as soon as possible.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. So we'll draft a letter over to them.
Because cease and desist requires the board to sign, so you do want to authorize one of you to sign that?
Yeah. Let the chair.
Chair can sign.
And then you can pop in.
Do you have a motion for me to sign?
Yes, second.
All in favor?
Yes. You can only make a motion. You can't second your own motion.
You made the motion, I second.
I never saw my lips move.
Okay. All right, so we'll do that.
Okay, and the other item that I had, I've received some information through police reports and have had a request to review the property in 25 commercial zones. It appears to be being used for residents and other uses that are not likely part of the site plan. So I started to review yesterday, and I will report back after I have found the information and been on site.
Less expensive rent.
What's going on with those storage buildings that you were looking at? Those are the ones that they
125?
built the storage containers into their structures. There was 2 properties.
Yes. Glenn has put together a letter, we put together a letter. He wasn't in yet, so we'll actually probably email that to you.
Okay.
So, on the findings, and yes, it was a container building on site, and there's some other violations. So we'll get you informed of those,
Okay.
probably after tomorrow. And the other building that we were looking at, we have a meeting tomorrow to look at the second one, well, the first.
That is 125?
No, 125 we looked at last week, we're gonna go to Murray Bay to look at one that I already viewed.
That's the electrical, right?
Right, so just where you have a better understanding of how to direct ourselves and the individual going forward. Hold I had anything else?
Good deal. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming.
Always a pleasure.
Now we're gonna call up Chief Bird.
If you'd like to come forward.
Charlie, come join us, bud. I'd like to take the opportunity to present Alyssa Sanuski. She's now my new EMS coordinator, taking the place of Donna, and with that comes the rank of captain, and we'd like to pin her tonight with the captain's rank.
Do your best. It's coming. I know he does. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Dave. Can you look this way for a sec? Yes, they are. And what's your boy's name? Charlie. Yeah.
Charles first.
I gotta go take a hand, buddy.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I know, right?
It's okay, you can handle it.
I hope so.
I was told that. Remember where we're budgeting. Can't afford it.
Matt Clark.
See you, Chief. Have a good one.
Hey, Wayne. See you later. Good night. Wanna come on up? Wayne's gonna flop right here. That way we can get all this taken care of all at once. Okay. Congratulations.
Sure. No, I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me. I've been in Brentwood going on 6 years here this year, so I've never had an issue at all. Appreciate what you guys do for us. And this year I had a little bit more of an issue in the springtime. Really that was concerned with erosion in my driveway, or I guess we all had a bad winter, obviously, but the spring this year was quite a bit worse than it had been in the past, that's all. So, I didn't expect anything other than what's normal. In the spring, when the snow all kind of melted away, I ended up with a bunch of heaves and things that are a little bit more than what I had in the past as far as a traditional spring maintenance or cleanup. So I wrote up, an email and wrote up a report with some photographs that I think you guys have all seen, but asking for, just a review. I felt as though the new asphalt that was put in last fall at least contributed. The shoulder of the new asphalt had kind of eroded, and parts of it ended up in my yard. And really, at that point, I just felt as though that it became more of an overburden for me, I guess, in the spring. It certainly wasn't what I had had in the past or been accustomed to as far as spring maintenance, I guess. So I submitted the email, and I'm sorry, I forget your name,
Karen.
Karen was nice enough to get Wayne and I guess Steve Cummings, the engineer for the town, out to have a look. So the first response was that it was really not resolved, that it had anything to do with my driveway. I guess that's the other part, is that I was planning on getting an asphalt driveway anyways. So I got an estimate for that in the spring, and when I was looking at it, I had kind of seen the issues. I mean, I don't want to point the finger at anybody as far as the asphalt is concerned. I appreciate the upgrade, but it seemed as though I ended up with more problems as far as erosion. So the asphalt, I think, would help with the erosion that I see in my driveway. I didn't think I would need to necessarily do it if I didn't see it, the erosion, but the bottom line is that I'm open to other people's opinion. Obviously, I'm not the end result. So Steve Cummings came out, made an initial assessment, and it was that it wasn't the driveway necessarily, that it was more along the lines of the drainage design, and then it needed a culvert. So I wasn't there that day when he was out there, and so I asked for Wayne and him to come back out and we could have a meeting. So Wayne and I also looked at it together. The runoff has been there, the neighborhood was designed in '94, I guess. So the reality is that the house has been there 20 something years. So I'm not saying that the driveway needs to change. I'm saying that the road was put in, and at this point, it seems as though that I've got more of a shoulder erosion issue than I've ever had. So Wayne was kind of on the same end. It's not something that he's in the design of roadways. I guess he's maintaining them, but it's not his final say. So Steve Cummings was able to come out and looked at it again. I think the biggest thing that I got from his takeaway was that the same conversation we had was that, he didn't necessarily say that it was the asphalt's fault, or the newly installed asphalt. He felt that it was an overall drainage concern, that we've had obviously climate impacts and weather pattern increases that kind of increase the capacity that we need for drainage. So I asked him what he would do if it was his yard. He felt that there was more of a culvert requirement because there's more than just water that is going to impact the driveway. So I guess at that point I was trying to understand what he meant by a culvert. I thought he was thinking like a full drainage ditch, because that's what they did on the other side of the street for me, because we kind of live at the bottom of a hill. So in reality, he said that at the time when the road was put in, that was why they put the ditch in on the other side of the street. And today's designs are approximately 30% more than what they were in '94. So they probably would have done it if they were putting the road in today. At the time, I said, well, if I put the asphalt over the driveway, it's going to help with my erosion of my driveway. But every spring, I'm going to end up with this scenario. So at the end of our meeting, which was 20 minutes on a Friday night, he made the comment that he felt as though there was probably a drainage basin, some sort of catch basin, that would collect the water runoff and either direct it underneath my driveway or kind of incorporate it. At the end of the day, I'm not asking for any sort of special privilege as far as the driveway is concerned. My opinion is that, you know, I would rather collaborate and address the scenario either before or during the process of doing my driveway, and, you know, either have some sort of compensation for the end of that. If it's your responsibility to put that in, I would obviously take that away. It would be a benefit on the actual cost of the driveway. I'd like to avoid having to do my driveway and then have somebody come up later on with a design plan that's gonna change that or create a drainage ditch that I would have otherwise done eventually, you know, prior. And if you say, hey, you know, it is what it is, pound sand, I honestly believe that, you know, I look at the asphalt driveway as an infrastructure increase, and, you know, there's 49 to 5,200 other residents in the town that get that benefit. And I can assure you, if all of them had what I had this spring, it wouldn't be a benefit. So if you say, hey, it is what it is, you bought the land, that's your lot, that's your driveway, then I'm gonna ask for some sort of tax abatement or, you know, credit. And if you just say that it's my issue to deal with, because there's clearly gonna be something that I have to address, and it's not gonna go away.
Your turn.
Okay. He does have a lot of water coming in. It's coming from, there's a hill right there all along, even the next door neighbors coming off in their driveway down the road and coming across, and it's landed up just like he's saying. Steve Cummings and I both looked at it, and he has enough depth in the middle of his driveway going from the road down to put a culvert. Put the culvert underneath his driveway, and because the water goes down, when it goes down and comes down by his driveway, it goes looking down his driveway, it goes to the right, goes to that wood line. So if you put a culvert, catches that water that comes down, and let that go right where it's going now, down there, right down by the wood line, it would get rid of a lot of it. Now on the road part up there, when we did the road up there, I don't think we noticed, but when they did the road, Bell and Flynn did the roads up there. The roads are made just like every other road. Half the water goes one way, the other half the water goes the other way, and that's how that road is built up there. We didn't know anything about any water problems at all when we did that road up there, and that's the way John Bell built it. The water sheds, half goes that way and half goes this way. So he may be getting a little, maybe the road was shifted a little bit the other way, and it wasn't noticeable, and we didn't know of any problems in there. No one, came to us. But
So is it the road design, or is it just the lot?
it's just the way the road is. There's a lot of water up there. That water comes down through there on both sides of the road.
It sounds to me like the fix is definitely a culvert.
But is the culvert town property, or is it on his own property?
No, it's on his property. No, it's not.
So if he did a culvert in conjunction with paving his driveway, you feel like that's gonna solve the problem?
It's gonna solve part of it. It was gonna take, the way the water's gonna go down there right where the water goes down and it swells up the driveway.
If we do nothing, it's all gonna, gravity's here. I'm a commercial roofing guy, so I know a little about water. It's the same on a roof as it is in the ground, so it will find its way, right? And there's
Path of least resistance.
clearly a low spot
Yeah.
between my house and my neighbor, so nobody's gonna combat that. And I just think it's, quite honestly, it would be overkill to put in this elaborate drainage system if all we need is a catch basin and something on my driveway. I don't think that I should assume all the liability of 80% of the street. And again, you can come out and look, and it's just, it is what it is, but, the driveway cost was almost $10,000, 80-something $100. 30% of that driveway is where the issue is. It's not the other part, so I'm not asking anybody to replace the driveway, in front of my garage, but I'm not willing to put in catch basins when I pay $12,000 a year in taxes, and everybody else gets the benefit, and I gotta pay more for more driveway than I would have done anyway. So, I mean, I just don't, at the end of the day, I don't wanna make an anthill, a mountain out of an anthill, and it's not an anthill, it's just that if we do nothing about it, and I put the asphalt in,
How about if we do a culvert and a rowboat?
well, I gotta get to work.
What's the paving people telling you?
My asphalt guy came in and said, you know, if you put this in, it's gonna,
Paving.
if you pave it.
Yeah.
You know, because right now it's cobblestone, and it's nice and pea stone, but it's not really friendly. But that's not the issue. I mean, I get, there's always been every year I've had to do it, but this year it was quite a bit worse, and it started to erode not just my driveway, but further up my lawn. So all of it's gonna collect at this one spot. And I guess what I would pitch back to you, if it was, you know, if the catch basin's off of the town's property, then it's not a catch basin issue, it's more of an issue than that. Then you're gonna come in and you're gonna put in, and, I mean, Steve Cummings basically looked at me and said, if they asked me to put in a drainage culvert like they did on the other side of the street, I mean, you're talking thousands of, hundreds of dollars, probably $100,000. I don't know what they cost, but it's a lot more than what a simple drain and something to get the water from one side of my driveway underneath wherever it would go. And again, I mean, it's been 20-something years that it's been there. The design, if you put that neighborhood in today, he told me would the capacity would be for 30% more water runoff. And I think that's really, I guess, what I'm getting is that extra 30% that's creating the problem. At least that's the way I see it. If it's been here this long, it did maybe the height of the asphalt, like Wayne said.
But this road, this has been an ongoing problem, probably with this for a while. It's been.
Yeah.
The shoulder, quite honestly, that was there, I think it eroded at some point. I mean, it just, then they put in a new shoulder.
I don't know if you've seen the pictures there. If it shows like where the streets are, where they're coming down there, you can see where the water goes down there. I mean, it shows the roots
Yeah,
and everything.
It does, if you look at color.
It's just washing that whole side off.
Right up here?
Yeah.
The one in the middle is color, it's easier to see. I didn't want to take it.
Actually, I might have some of
Like
the
right here
color.
is these rates? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, here's the same ones. in color.
Interior lot erosion?
Hey, did you see that email from Jeff Donald yesterday? Did you see the email from Jeff Donald yesterday? Call culverts and catch basins.
No, I sent him a message.
Back.
I want him to know color.
So this is all just pea gravel right now?
Yeah, I haven't heard
It's
from him.
cobblestone at the entry and then pea gravel.
Could you use some of that money for this?
But then
I don't know.
the erosion that I guess we're talking about is really the stuff that's off the driveway that he's talking about. And at the tree line.
Oh,
That's the, yeah,
like right here?
yep. If you look at the overall picture, you might be able to see the whole, there is an overall.
Right here?
So that's the shoulder part that I'm talking about, that's the part that ran off. And then that's where it ended up further down. Can't really, actually, there's a tree missing. That's it. So, basically, this whole spot along this tree and where this is, it all collects right here, which happens to be in the bottom of that ditch.
Oh, that's sinking right in this area.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm confused about what is, yeah, I understand, I see it, but what are you asking us to do? I'm confused about that. Are you asking us to put in a drain here, where the tree is, where it goes across your driveway?
I'm not, what I was asking for was to remediate the drainage. It's gonna be a continual issue for me every spring. It's not necessarily a problem today, but yesterday when it rains, it all collects there. And again, it's from the street that, really isn't mine, I guess. So
So the water runs from the street
Puddles.
Yeah, if you peel back and look at the
Puddle
other,
up in these areas. So this is probably a big, huge puddle.
yeah,
Where
and
the
I
rain
live,
is, so right where your driveway is and it dips down right where that tree is.
right,
It's basically pooling in that whole area.
Right.
So you got like,
and if it's raining, it'll basically just, it's like a stream. So then when the rain stops and the water runs down, it eventually ends up all over the side of my driveway. So I guess
I'm not sure how we would think.
the engineer's opinion was that he felt that if he was to make a change, you know, because if you go around, there's obviously areas where you have to restore. Rowell Road, there's some washout. There's washout at the other end of where Old Gordon comes and you put in the larger rock. I mean, even that might be a help if the rock shoulder was changed. But I just, I'm gonna put the driveway in regardless. I want to. Not because, well, I don't want to drive over this hump over and over again, but I also don't want, you know, at the end of the day, I don't think that it's necessary to do anything more than this drain, if that's where the water's gonna collect and it's gonna prevent that from happening. But if we don't do that, then it's gonna eventually lead to something that's more, and in my opinion, it's gonna be more costly for everybody. It's gonna change, you know, whatever, 5 feet off the edge of the
and
road.
because of the slope of your land, there's no real swale at the beginning.
That's what he was saying, they would put in a swale.
So they would dig out, make a swale, so now you
I mean,
have a gully.
And it would actually, you'd have to build up for the gully to even perform. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense to me, well, there's a hole right here. And that's when he was saying containment basin, I thought that's what he was talking about, was a swale. So I didn't agree with his first assessment, and then when he came out, I said, well, all right, if you're just talking about a drain and a pipe, let's do that, because I don't want a whole swale. I don't think that makes any sense.
Mowing.
It's not good taxpayer money, it's not good for anybody. But it also doesn't solve, if I don't do anything, then I think that I'm gonna be back here eventually saying, now I got a driveway that doesn't wash out, but I have all this problem that, I don't,
That tree is right there.
Yeah.
Right there is where he gets most of the water from up here. It comes right down through here.
It's puddling in right here where it's
Yeah.
sinking in right there.
Right there. And that's where,
Here's a great shot right there.
that's where Steve thought the culvert would go across his driveway here, because over here is the wood line.
Right.
That's
over
what,
here.
15, 20 feet into the
Yeah,
property?
that's it's on his property, but he has the depth. From coming down this road, coming down, he has a depth, I think, to put a 12-inch culvert and fill over it and make his driveway so it comes out and then down further, it will come out, you know,
So the water that puddles here would have a way to get across underneath.
to get out. All the water coming through here comes right through here, so if he puts a culvert right here, he's gonna take most of his water right here, and it's gonna go beyond this driveway and down to the wood line. That's where it goes now, it goes right across his driveway here now, and that's what, it takes all the dirt and everything right in there.
And this is where I'm gonna defer over to Kit, since he does the permits on these, right?
Does the permits.
On the driveways? Oh, I thought Kit did these.
Yeah, almost happening.
I was gonna say, get up here.
you know, and I'm agnostic, I don't, you know, honestly, I don't, I mean, I guess it goes back to if you tell me that the catch basin is my concern, then I'd like to have a conversation about my taxes. It's that simple.
And that I would
Because
defer
nobody else
to-
has this problem, it's my conversation.
That would go to Jim, who
you know,
does the assessments.
Right, right, because there's, you know, that's really all I need, that's it.
Has Steve memorialized any of this?
There was a memo that he did draft, but that was back in May, I believe.
Is it Steve Cummings?
Yes.
Yeah, so he came out and his first assessment was like I said, a catch basin, but a whole culvert, you know, that's the other thing, is that if we don't do anything, and then the driveway's the driveway, and then if drainage becomes a different story as far as if they wanna put in, it would be a whole elaborate project that just is unnecessary. I don't know why you would do it, I guess.
So here's Steve Cummings, and I'll just read this. The board members, as requested, have completed inspection of the above noted project with Wayne Robinson, town road agent. It is evidence that stormwater flows from the roadway toward the above property. Based on the review of the property, the recent pavement has not added to the runoff. The house and drive are set well below Northrop Drive. It appears that some attempt was made to divert the runoff to a low spot on the south side of the driveway and toward the referenced hump to carry the flows across the driveway. The water has flowed through this swale for some time prior to the recent paving. Contributing factor to the problem is the cobblestones along either side of the driveway. Water flows off the roadway, down the drive, and the cobblestones tend to keep the water in the driveway, causing some erosion. Based upon the above, it is my opinion that recent pavement has contributed very little to the existing erosion problems at the driveway, etc. A solution to help alleviate the problem would be to install a ditch along Northrop Drive and direct the water to a culvert across the driveway to be installed at the existing berm location in the drive and building up the driveway from the street over the culvert. It would have to be coordinated with the town and landowner. Steve?
That's kind of where I was a little confused in the beginning, that it wasn't the driveway, but then at the end, he explained to me that that would be incorporated into the driveway, so I said, well, who's that? So that's, I guess, that's how I ended up here. So I want to fix it, but I also don't, I'm not expecting for everybody else to fix it, but I don't want to fix it and then have it redone or dug up, or I think it's just a matter of collaborating together to do it the most cost-effective way.
Conservation Commission is looking for projects on culverts and catch basins. Do you want to see if this, I mean, if you can prove that it's a public good and it doesn't just benefit one resident?
Yeah, maybe defer this
That's a
over
project
to
that
the
they
Conservation Commission so they can look at these.
Steve was saying that you know, he referenced that there's other areas in town where drainage restoration is becoming an issue because of current weather. And I said, well, I think this is what, I think personally, I mean, do you agree with that or not?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot.
So he just said that, you know, it's not uncommon, but it's just, you
And the
know.
Conservation Commission does take on projects like this. I know they did some stuff over at the condos, I think it was,
Pit Pocket and Rowell.
yeah, where they did stuff with their
I mean, they
septic and, you know, so there's projects that they take on that might, they might be able to help out on this project. My concern is that it's so far into your property.
so you guys own up to 8 feet from the edge of the road, is that right?
4 feet, right? 4 feet is right away.
25 feet.
It's 25
25
feet
from the center of the road.
Is that what it is? I'm probably just off of that. I mean, that's probably like 12 to 16 feet from the edge of the road, right? That is.
So I would definitely like to reach out to the Conservation Commission to see what their recommendations are and if they can assist at all in that aspect of it. Just because it is on private property and, you know, even Steve has outlined that it's really not the result of the paving, but yeah, there is a runoff issue that you have going on.
Yeah, but see, that's, I guess, where the disconnect of what he put in writing and what he said to me was because if I asked him, if you put this neighborhood in today, how would you design it? And he said, I'd do what I did on the other side of the street.
If I build a house today, then when I built your house, it would be under different codes.
I
So
totally get it. I totally get it.
Cars, same thing, right? Cars now have to have backup cameras.
Yeah, but
20 years ago, they
a
didn't.
road, you can't really
Yeah.
just, you can't buy a new road, right? That's
Right.
yours. It's not
Yeah.
mine, it's your road. So when the road came up and the crest of the road started to make the problem worse, that's when I came to the table. I didn't come 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I bought the lot, I knew where it was, and now I feel as though there's an overburden because of it. So if the Conservation Committee tells me to pound sand, then where am I going next? Because I'm gonna sit here until I'm blue in the face, until you tell me that your driveway is the same. I don't understand, you know, I don't get it. So if you concede on the taxes, then I will spend the money to put the drainage in. That's gonna benefit everybody, not just me.
And the tax assessment, as far as the valuation, I would end up deferring that over to our town assessor,
Okay.
who's Jim. So as far as, I don't think as a board, we would, I mean, it's up to you guys. What are you guys' thoughts on putting a culvert in somebody's driveway?
I would go to the Conservation Commission. We
As
don't
a
meet though
first step.
until the August 14th,
Because
I think they're
What's your-
looking for
They're looking for
What's your
projects.
They're looking for projects.
They're looking for projects,
Matthew, what's your
okay?
time
Because I know
frame?
there's some.
that's the thing that I don't mind, like, I guess August, I would like to try to, I don't wanna be picking up stones and dealing with stuff next spring. Asphalt, I think they stop in like October, November, so.
Yeah.
I'd like to, I mean, August seems fine, but I guess then, how long, what's the review process, what's the cycle of that, is that, how, you know, would that be
I-
practical for me to ask them?
I'm just a member, and
Okay.
it's my first year, so all I know is we talked about, they were looking for projects.
Okay, I mean, that
I
seems
would talk
reasonable
to
to
the
me,
chairman and.
I understand.
So let me
Do
understand.
you want me to
just-
forward this to the chairman of the conservation?
If you
Commission?
could, yeah, and then just copy me or give her my info.
Let me understand what the solution is. The solution is to put a culvert on the side of his driveway on his property? Is that?
Under his driveway.
It would go through.
It's gonna be
So it
under
would
his
be under the
driveway.
driveway and then it would run the
It
water
would come,
off
it
to the
would
side.
come like,
Yeah.
what Wayne explained, it would come from here, like that, this way.
Right, it would collect at the base of the
So we're
tree.
gonna take the water from the front
Of this
and
tree,
and slide it
and
underneath.
slide it underneath the driveway to the other side.
Go to where it goes now, which is my lot, my neighbor's lot.
And how deep would that have
That I
to
don't know.
Not that much. I've already, what he did, the reason why he likes the idea is that it's already natural. When he says
be?
there was some
It would be a
attempt,
natural flow of the water.
it would be the natural flow. And when he thought there was like some sort of attempt to divert the water, he was saying, and the cobblestones, the other part that I didn't mention was,
That means you
I don't care about the cobblestones, if they came on.
So in my mind, the obvious time to do that is now, because you would have to dig up your driveway anyways before you pave it.
Right,
And get that in before you do anything.
right.
So if the Conservation Commission is interested in doing that, that would be the time for it.
Karen's gonna, and I,
Yeah.
I think that's a great, I think that's
It's a good
fine.
step, we'll see what
I
happens.
think that's fine. I mean, honestly, that's,
I will come to the meeting on the 14th.
I absolutely will, yeah. And then that way I'm not, I just don't
7
like
o'clock,
keep
right?
It's going
pushing
to.
it.
7
7 o'clock.
August 14th?
Yeah, and so I think a lot of times if they can forward this over to Jeff, Donald, who's
They
the
can
chair,
look at it. They
he
can
can
come-
look at that, and
Yeah.
he probably can reach out to you, call you, so that way he's prepared when he comes to the meeting.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep, that's
So-
fine.
He owns, Stout Oak,
Stout Oak Farm one.
Middle
Okay.
Road,
Yeah,
the big
drive
white
by it all the
barn
time.
there.
Yeah.
Great.
Pull in there, ask for Jeff.
No, that's great.
That's what I would do.
And again, I'm sorry for chewing up a half hour.
No, I'd rather have you come in than not, so.
Bruce?
Just as a general question, not germane to this particular piece of property, but maybe you could check for the next meeting and report back to us. I don't think that you can expend town funds on private property.
I don't believe we can.
And I don't think this, as far as I know, Phil, it's the Conservation Commission money is grants from the state and federal government. So I don't think they can expend money on private property.
Oh, and I'm not, I don't really know. I'm
It's
not
got to be
sure.
public
In terms of
land.
notification for the gentleman here who, I've seen these projects go on before, and they've been, went to the library here
That
in
could be, I
town.
don't know.
This is, in order to get state or federal funds, you have to go through a lengthy design, review, and engineered process. So this is not gonna happen this year, even if they elect in August to submit the proposal.
Mm,
And that's if they can expend money on
Yeah,
private
that I
property.
don't know.
That's good intel.
But that's a general question to the town board to begin with. I mean, absent the Conservation Commission,
Is the tax
can you guys legally, as a board, vote to spend money,
Janice,
spend town funds on private property? I don't think so.
I appreciate your help.
That's a tough one. Jim, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's the
Thank you,
assessor.
though.
Well, I think it's just how it is.
No, it is what it is.
Yeah, I know usually touching private property, we won't do that. But if it was along, I think if this culvert was like at the front, then there might be a shot.
Well, if it was remediation
that's-
on town-owned property, yes.
Yeah.
But I don't think the DRA will even allow you.
Well, I
to-
guess that's really what I'd have to evaluate. I'd actually like to still have you send it, because I'd like their opinion on if they think more is justified than just a, because if they think that that's not enough, then yeah, come and get it done, and then I'll do my driveway after you're done with the work.
Yeah, then you worry about
I guess
next
I'll
year.
do it
or
next
whatever.
year, right.
You just push
But
it
I-
back, yeah.
Whatever, I don't spend the money this year, it's not the end of the world, I'll bring my tax bill.
Right.
Thank you all.
You had a question on mower? Nope, you're all set, I appreciate it. While you're here, I might as well hit you up, yeah, go.
Okay.
Oh, you mean,
I got enough for everybody.
Oh, good. We already know. Get it done.
Yeah, we got
You
you
didn't
here.
give me this, did you?
No, that's,
Is that attached?
this is
Oh,
Wayne's. That's Wayne's. Thank you.
You have extra money?
Well,
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
with all the trees, with all the rain that we're getting, we got it last year, we got it this year, and the trees are really growing out. They're coming out there on the road. So, we started last week, we were cutting trees, cutting them by hand all over town, trying to get some of the trees. But then, one day we was down the shed and I asked Jeremy, I said, do you know anybody that's got a machine that they rent? I know some of the companies now aren't renting them. Fairfield had them to rent and they got rid of them, they don't have them to rent. So then Jeremy wasn't sure either, so he said, well, let me call Rosencrantz. He's got a friend down at Rosencrantz, because they do all this farm work, they go down to Rosencrantz for that. So he called, I think his name was Dan or something. Anyways, he called him and he said, asked him if he had a machine that would cut these trees, that if he would rent it. And he says, well, yes, I do. I have a rig here. He said, I just got it in. He says, and so I asked him how much it would cost to rent. And it was $5,000. $5,000. He said we could keep it as long as we wanted to do the whole town. So I said, okay. It cost me over $6,000 to have. I have Martin do it in August and July. It cost me $6,000 to have him come and do this with this same kind of machine. Actually, Martin's machine doesn't go as high as what this machine right here. And this is a 2005 machine. And the town of Bow traded it in for a new one. And we went down and looked at this machine. At the picture, it looks really old, but it's got brand new tires on it, and them guys kept it up. It's been kept up pretty good. And so we got talking down there, and guys down there said, if we take the machine, we want to rent the machine for $5,000. He'll put that on top of buying the machine, which is
$25,000, right?
For $25,000 for buying the machine. So I said, geez, I better look and see how much money I got here. Because I know we got that new truck coming, and the amount of money that
That's paid for though, right?
What's that?
That's paid for.
That's, yeah, the money is, but I don't
know if we have any money left in that account, do we?
15.
We put 15,000 in this year.
So there's 15 there now.
15,000, okay. So, I started to look around here, where did I do my thing? I started to look around, and with that 15,000 that I have, and if we take the 7,000 that I have here in the line item, I don't think I have quite that now, I think we used a little bit out of it, but it was $7,000, $7,000 in to take away from the mowing, because we can do all mowing with this machine on that line item. And how much am I,
That's 22,000.
3,000?
That's 22,000, so you're 3,000 off.
Okay, so then I went down, I said, well, I got a line item down here that I don't use too much because it's $5,000, which we put that in there for radios for trucks. Well, this brand new truck that we already got, that got coming, that's included, that's already included with the truck. And actually, I already got the radio, I already paid for it out of the truck money that we had, because we included it all in one.
What about the other trucks?
So I was wondering if we could take the rest of the money that we needed out of that line item.
You have
buy the
radio,
truck.
but do you have radios in the other trucks already?
We have radios and everything.
So that's also. I'd be inclined for you to go down there and tell the guy, give him 20,000 and be done with it. I know he's got it for 25.
Even 22.
Even 22.
Because you got 22 in the budget.
Tell him that you don't want to pay 25, because you pay 20. See if you take 20. He doesn't have 25,000 to do that track.
He has another buyer for the Stratford.
For 25?
I don't know, but the other guy doesn't really want the tractor, he only wants the machine on it. That's why he's looking for us to, if we come down.
And
I'll go down and ask him.
So here's the other question. What do we save if we're doing this ourselves? 6,000 a year minimum, right? So.
But that's something you're gonna need.
So we're gonna get our money back in 5 years. Is this
It's
tractor
getting
gonna
the
last
point.
5 years?
And this basically is that grinding machine that they,
Did you get all the trees when you go down the
You
side of the
go, you
road?
just put it up in the air, put it up, it goes up.
Just grinds them all down.
And you just go right down and grinds them right down the side.
so like that one that's popping out on Long Meadow, it's now.
Where would you store it?
it?
Where would you store this?
What's that?
Where would you
We
store
get a
it?
new shed down there. We'll put it right inside.
We don't have a new shed yet, do we?
Not yet.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I know we have some over the rack, we got some garage space over there, right? We got 3 garage bays.
It seemed to me
To
like.
me, I would say offer them 22, because I know you have 22 in the budget, see what you
Okay.
can do.
I'll
See if
do
it'll take
that.
22.
I'll see what he says.
See if it takes 22, but ultimately we have the money in the budget, so.
I'd ask 20, and then if he doesn't go 20,
Yeah,
then
then
say
say
That's
22.
20.
And we'll
Start
Of course,
with
we're
20.
live streaming, so he could be watching.
We'll
this.
go 20. You can get the box at that,
Is it
we'll go
working?
22.
I don't know if it's working.
Yeah.
Is it working?
Okay, Bruce.
Those machines are, Wayne's right, I mean, this town has done a horrible job on cutting back for years. I mean,
Yep.
a horrible
Yep.
job. It does need to be done, but those machines are high maintenance, so I would suggest, maybe it's a good deal, but why not rent it for $5,000? He's gonna give you that allowance anyway. Try it for a week and make sure it really works.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll do that.
Yeah, tell him you'll do that, you'll take it for 5,000, he's gonna put towards the price. You wanna try it out in town and see if it's worthwhile pursuing, and then I would offer him 20.
Or we could consider wait until next year and make a warrant article and buy a brand new machine. You're buying one that's already 13
Yeah, but
years.
what's a
14
new one
years old.
cost?
Oh, I forgot.
Well, that's irregardless of what it costs. We have to do the research to find out.
The big thing is to see if it really works.
Yeah, well, I know
Well,
when
we
Mr.
know
Martin
we
comes in,
have-
it does work. I've seen his
Yeah.
operation.
Well,
We got
To a
some
point.
older equipment anyway.
Older.
A lot older equipment. You got
So,
one that's
yeah.
obsolete because they gave you 5 parts for it.
That's a good suggestion. Get it for 5,
Okay.
use it in town and see if it works and see if you're happy with it, and then we can pursue after that where we wanna go with it. Ken may be right, maybe we wanna buy a new one. I don't know what a new one costs.
I don't know, what's a new one cost?
Well,
I'm sure
we're gonna
it's-
research
It was
it.
100 and something.
I'm sure it's over
I did it
100,000.
two years ago with,
Yeah, I thought it was over 100,000.
yeah, it was about 135, I think.
And I think we all kinda gasped and said, oh, I don't think we.
But this has got a bucket on the front of it too.
Yeah,
This
so
is
this-
other stuff.
so
yeah.
this could be
That's
used
the other
for other
thing.
things.
This thing comes off, we can use it for other things too. It's
Yeah.
not just, with that comes right off, the back
And put it on the.
comes right off and you can get it.
How much is just that attachment?
I don't know.
The
He
boom
didn't-
mower?
He didn't tell me what it was.
Did you put that on something you have?
I don't know.
Did they tell you how many hours are on it?
93.
Yeah.
4,300.
4,300
Oh, okay. Is that a lot of miles? I mean,
It's a diesel. I mean, those things
So
are
they
usually
probably use it for
bulletproof,
10
but
years.
I mean, you got that other, when I went down there with him and we looked at the mowers that are, we've been trying to get bids on for 12 years. He's got one Kubota down there, it's what, 18 years, you said it was there when you got here, right?
Yeah.
That Kubota?
Yeah.
Sounds like a Mack truck, but it starts and it probably is a Mack truck.
Yep.
Richard has one.
It goes, it's a tank. I mean, those diesel Kubotas are tanks.
It's not the engine though, the
It's the
cost
stuff
is
that
gonna be
goes in,
maintained in that
yeah.
device.
And it's a grinder, so you're moving parts.
Right.
and It's a mower,
Okay.
so
So,
I would
try it
agree
for
with
the
trying
5
to try it out
and
for
then,
5.
We'll go from there and see what we can do.
Yep.
Are we done with that?
So you're only renting it for 5, that's what you're.
Rent it for 5 and
And then
then
rent it for 5 and.
Yeah,
you
see
use
what,
it.
see what.
come back to us next week and let us know.
Yeah.
Yes, we're meeting next Tuesday, so come back and tell us what your thoughts are.
Well, we don't meet next week, so we have.
We are meeting next week because you have the deeds next week.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Well, Wayne's here. Did we ever give Mr. Webb an answer on this?
I haven't heard from Webb since.
Well, I mean, did we give him an answer and say we were gonna do it ourselves, or he?
When we send them a letter, you said you'd think about it.
Yeah, I think we were thinking about it, but I think one of the consensus that we got at that meeting was, it's not beneficial to the town, it's
That's right.
actually, it loses us money.
Right, so we should do it ourselves.
We should still keep doing what we're doing.
Yep.
In fact,
We have
if you
more
want a
revenue
motion, I'll make a
generation right
motion
now than we did before. You're making a motion?
that we decline Mr. Webb's offer and go forward with our own activities.
Do I have-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? There you go.
Okay.
So we can send them a letter and say, thank you, but it's not beneficial. Good deal.
It looks like you're off the hook, sir.
Thank you.
And Chief, your turn.
First is the K-9 agreement that you've all.
Has everyone read that? Any thoughts on that?
The only change, do you wanna go over?
Is that any different than what already, that's what
No, it's
status
pretty
quo,
much,
right?
yeah,
Thanks,
It's
Kip.
what we talked about before in terms of numbers,
Yes.
so.
Forgot how to open that?
I guess.
For a long day? Yeah,
I got in the shed.
So the sentence that was added is the dog is sold as is with no representation or warranty as to its health, longevity, disposition, history, or its suitability as a household pet. Buyer is solely responsible for the decision to acquire the dog and for taking appropriate measures to properly train, supervise, and care for it, including taking any and all necessary precautions to protect himself and others.
This is if the dog's retired, right? Is that if the dog's retired, is that the section we're talking about?
If George is to buy it, is there a hold harmless agreement in there?
That's what
There's
the.
two,
that's
there's
what
two
Primex
different
would
provisions
recommend.
there. One provision is if George takes a dog and the dog's no longer active service dog. There's another provision where if George takes the dog and puts it in service in a different
Yep.
part. So what part are you talking about?
Well, there's that section that said there
So the
is
part you
on
just
in
read
there
is
for
for
$2,500. That's if George
George
takes it as
the
a
dog
pet.
and the dog's retired.
It's a pet, it's retired.
Okay.
The only
That's-
concern I have, and Karen said that Primex agrees, is there should be a hold harmless clause in this.
Hold the town harmless.
Hold the town harmless.
Okay.
Yeah. That's not on here.
Well, that's what that as-is statement is.
As is.
That's the as is, so that's their statement.
That's what they would recommend.
Because I will
I
tell you
usually like to
something,
have that
I
spelled
dealt
out,
with
but
a
that's
dog
okay.
that was a retired dog, that you better make sure you know that the dog knows that you're not a threat. Because they can be pretty,
It's no different when we did with Titan. When we gave him to Virginia,
right.
we had
We
to sign
signed it,
liability.
yeah.
We were responsible for it. and
Was this
done.
very similar worded to
Yep,
their
yeah,
agreement?
same thing.
Okay, I'm good with it then.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So, we're good.
And the second issue is to get permission to post a part-time detective position at $25 per week.
And that's just replacing
Mark,
Mark.
Anyone else has read the name?
Yeah, so we have, look at my notes here. So Ian Matheson, our animal control officer, he has resigned his position as he's taken another position, another agency. And Mark Turner has also resigned. Any thoughts on the ACO position, or?
yeah, I had a conversation with Chief Pullen from Exeter PD, and they're in the process of looking to fill their full-time ACO position. So I'd like to consider maybe doing something for on a contract where we can utilize their services.
Okay, so like if there's an animal, you would just call their officer and have them come over and help us out?
And until then, we'll have our patrol officers handle the calls.
Why wouldn't we do our own position like we have in the?
If I have the right applicant,
Yep.
I'd entertain it.
So why don't we post that too?
It's really not my priority at the moment.
I understand that, but why would we?
Economics.
But why would we not look to pursue that at the same time as we're looking to pursue a different position?
The question has been asked and answered. It's not a priority.
I know it's not a priority.
So let's move on.
Why would we meet up
So-
with another police department?
It's cheaper, it's cheaper.
I don't know if it is.
Less exposure,
I'm not sure
less
it's-
liability.
So
They don't have one either.
Well, they'll have one.
this is why it's not a priority at the moment. I've had to contract out to conduct another background. We are absolutely buried right now. So what goes into a process when you hire someone is an enormous amount of work, which should be a thorough background that's done correctly, which entails a lot of legwork and report writing. And right now, we're still trying to wrap up our last full-time conditional offer. And we're in the process of doing a background on a part-time candidate that I've contracted out with Fremont PD because frankly, I don't have anybody that can do it. And doing a background for an ACO, we just don't have the resources at the moment. So that's why I say, if the right candidate came along and it looked pretty good that this could really work out, I would entertain it, only until the other backgrounds are cleared. But I do believe, exploring the option of contracting out would, at least, it would save money, in my opinion, with the budget that we have for the ACO.
So are the policemen passing out the civil forfeitures?
We are.
So with that, I'll take a motion to post the detective's position.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any more on the
Bills.
ACO, or?
I did 25 yesterday.
Okay, so you're good on that one.
That's it, that's all I got.
It was a turn down.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, before the chief leaves,
Sure.
you guys voted on an issue earlier about the dog, and I'm just curious, if the current dog officer were to leave Brentwood, go to another agency, and the dog didn't go with him, what happens to the dog at that point?
If the dog stayed with Brentwood PD, is that what you're asking?
Does he get assigned to, does the dog get assigned to another officer? What,
To be honest with you, Butch, you haven't really even thought about that. If the dog stayed with Brentwood PD, yeah, we would certainly entertain that. It's fully trained. But
I just didn't know, can the dog,
You have
is the
to
dog
retrain
interchangeable with
another
officers? Because my understanding is
you know
that-
what? I think George is probably better able to answer that question as a canine officer.
You can transfer handlers, but it's in good faith. It's not good for the dog emotionally.
We learned I think.
We've
our
learned
experience
that,
at the
and
time.
plus, what happens is that as a canine, and you certify as a team, not individually. Yes, the dog is dual purposely certified in narcotics and patrol, but you'd also send a new recruit to the academy except to recertify. So they'd have to go through the whole 16 weeks patrol, the whole 8 weeks of narcotics together, and then move forward. So.
Since we hired the dog, I've heard many, many stories about, we truly probably erred in starting a canine force here because of the surrounding departments and the state police would have provided us a dog when needed within 20 minutes.
Well, there's different ways. Listen, there's disadvantages and advantages
I
to
understand that.
having a canine. Is there a cost associated with it? Yes. Can you rely on state police and other agencies in their canine? Yes. Have we got a lot of use out of the canine? Yes.
Sure.
As a fact, 2 weeks ago, when we had that pursuit in 3 different towns, it was George and Dax that located the female
Right.
subject. So there is a lot of value to the canine, but
But
there's
she
a lot.
was pregnant.
No, she wasn't.
There's
That's what I heard.
there's cost associated with it.
So,
So
if I can follow up on that question, because I couldn't hear all the details of the agreement that you guys were voting on, what is the price that was put on the dog if another agency wanted to?
It's
acquire it?
$2,500.
I would just urge as a citizen that if that situation comes up, I hope the board would revisit that, because if the dog is gonna go to another local agency, I would hate to see, especially not knowing what would become of the dog if that officer left without it, that you would revisit that as a board.
This agreement
Yeah.
is pretty much for the dog to remain with George. So if George went to another department and the department wanted to hire George as a canine officer, it gives that department the ability to
Take them both.
take them both at the same time, and him to keep the resource that he has and keep the dog kind of with its handler, so they kind of grow together.
And I would suspect unless you went somewhere far, far away, we could still use you and the dog as
I don't
you
plan on
are
going
being
anywhere.
used. No, but I mean, if you were to leave the department and go to another department. My guess is that we would use you if you were available, just like you're used now by other departments on a on-call.
Part of my
basis.
job, I'm available mutual aid, so.
And this
So
is
there you go.
also beneficial for George, because let's say he stays here for the next 6-7 years. I don't know what's the life expectancy of a canine dog.
6 or 7 years?
I'm going to, if I
Allows
can,
him to buy the dog for $1.
last comment on this topic, because
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with the selectmen at the end of the table. It just, it,
My name is Ken Christensen.
Ken Christensen.
Thank you.
That if for some reason the current dog officer chooses to go to another agency and they're interested in the dog, it may be in the town's interest to not be so concerned about that $2,500 fee and just to let the animal go with it, because we're still gonna have access to that. And it resolves the concern that he raised.
Well, it also allows the ability in that agreement for them to purchase the equipment is in this agreement too.
If
that's
they
in
so
there, too.
choose.
I just wanted to weigh in.
All the stuff that goes
in
along with
front
it,
of the
so
board.
there's additional canine equipment that goes along with the dog, so.
Bob, I'd like to hear what Bruce has to say.
Well,
Yes, Bruce,
it's
sir.
just a comment, it's just a personal comment. I mean, I do hear the good news about, I saw the thing in the paper about the dog, the subject being found in Kingston. But I do know a chief, and he asked me not to mention his name, it's the current chief here in the area. I've been a chief here for probably 35 years, and I said to him, I won't mention his name, I said, why does Brentwood have a canine dog? And he said, well, Bruce, he said, I can't give you a good reason for that. He said, I can make a call. He said, every police barracks, every district or division has their own dog. He said, and this is a town not too far from here, he said, I can have 3 canines here within, like what Alan's saying, about, he said 20 minutes to a half hour. He said, so I don't know why you guys are getting involved with dogs. And so I've always asked, I mean, we've heard from the selectmen before, from some members that Brentwood gets some reimbursement for drug money or something. And I've always been asking, I'd like to ask again, can you give us a detailed breakdown of the cost associated with this dog operation? And then tell me how much money we gain or get back or reimburse on a yearly basis, just to see, you know, where
Is it a
we're
wash?
at here.
Well, you know, the money's already really been spent on the certification. With the purchase of the dog, which I understand came through the association through donations. So that really wasn't any expense to the town. The training certainly came out of the budget.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, we've got it, we bought all the equipment, we've got the officer here is obviously capable for other things too. So that's great, we keep it, but I'm just hoping if something changes, the officer leaves and then something happens to the dog, that we kind of reevaluate at that point to see, you
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
financially what would be
Yes.
good for the town.
I think we would do that. I mean, we've already kind of discussed that before.
But you know, the other thing is with the canine, like I said, I say cost associated with it, but the dog, it's a very great tool for PR. You know, and you really can't put a price tag on PR, to be honest.
And this damn dog doesn't bark like that other freaking dog you guys
I know,
have.
right?
And I gotta say, I mean, and this
The other one was Cujo.
this is a good dog. I mean, you know, I've got a little experience with the canine. I oversaw it for state police prior to my retirement. I mean, I wasn't a canine handler, you know, but you know, canine handlers are very passionate about what they do, and they train very hard with their dog. And this, from what I've seen with this dog, it's a good dog. And there are some that are not so good. I've had to deal with dog bites
We gotta
and.
go with it, but this chief said to me, he said, you aren't even thinking about the cost. He said, most people don't realize that the officer gets so many hours a week for taking care of the dog, the vet bills and the training and.
It's all taken care of. You guys don't have to worry about it. All right. We always come Monday morning quarterback, you know, but
But I
it's
mean-
at the end of the
But I
day.
think it's a fair question for a
George,
resident taxpayer.
We're the decision makers, we're not.
I know.
I think it's a fair question
All
for
right.
the taxpayer.
And to answer your questions,
What are
20
the
minutes,
costs?
20
What's the-
minutes
Yep.
what's the
in a
cost?
crime scene is a long time. That person could be a mile and a half away. All right, so someone to get here in 20 minutes, even 15, 10, it's over. Okay, just so you guys know. Okay.
Good deal.
Yeah.
About canine anymore? I think we're good.
Okie dokie.
Thank you, Chief. I'll let you take care of that. Mr. Albert?
Hello again.
This one, right?
Those are the minutes from every waiver that we granted that I could find.
Okay. So these are, I wish Andy was here, because he was the one that was the chair at the time, so it would help make sense.
The
Ken was
majority
out
of
here.
them were from lots of record that were created prior to 2001.
And in 2001, is that when we created all the
That's
impact?
when the impact fee ordinance originated, and then it was reevaluated in 2014. So the primary home on this lot was built in 2017 after that subdivision was created, and they paid an impact fee at that time.
And this is on,
And the impact fee paid at that time was $68.30, and now the impact fee requested on the accessory unit is higher than that because it's being imposed after the ordinance was reassessed.
and this is the one that's on Lake Road, right? Yeah. Is this gonna have a separate driveway? I drove by that.
It has a separate driveway. We get a driveway permit, yes,
So it's got a separate driveway, it's got a foundation,
yes.
and what's the total square footage?
Livable, heatable is just under 1,200 square feet, I believe. Kip would have that. We have a building permit. We have a driveway permit, building permit. And we're underway. The footings were poured today. And the foundation walls go up tomorrow. Well, they go up Thursday, actually. Forms go up tomorrow.
This is a new dwelling at this location.
So it's an ADU, is I guess the verbiage. It is a new dwelling, it is a new construction, an ADU, which is going to be attached to my daughter's home via a roofed breezeway.
Is there a different address for it?
As of right now, we're 106 Lake Road.
But if you chose to 5 years from now, or 2 years from now, or a year from now, or 10 years from now, whatever, you could sell it separately from your daughter's house.
No.
No, you
No.
couldn't. So it's all a package, you can't sell it separately?
No, it's
You can only have one unit on a lot.
It's all one package. All we're doing is we downsized. So instead of going to a place like Three Ponds or a 55 and older community, we had a conversation with our daughter. They just built a new home. They have the land, they have the space. We did it prior with my wife's parents. This is gonna be, I hate to say it, but our last dwelling. And we're gonna retire here, live here, and then maybe become snowbirds or go west or go south. But it's gonna be all part of my daughter's home and my son-in-law's home. It's just gonna add value to their property.
So if you went to Three Ponds, you would still have to pay impact fees.
Minus the school.
The school.
Yeah,
This could be a rentable property and it wouldn't be subject to the covenants of a 55 and older community.
Well, that's true, but that's not the situation that we have right now.
But you could also have children in the 55.
Yep.
That's right, up to 20%.
Yeah, 100%.
well, this structure is, again, it's a one bedroom.
What's the school impact?
The senior impact fee is $36.18. So that's what the impact fee would be minus
At
the
Three
school
Ponds.
portion.
3618?
Is it
That's
three-
my
That's a
motion.
Three Ponds. That's a Three Ponds. I don't know. We'd have to look at what the impact fee, I think your total impact was 70,000.
7,300.
Oh, is that without the school?
No, that's with the school.
Their whole calculation was 73, but there's different calculations depending on,
I thought the school was either 35 or 3,600. And the library was 1,000 and change. And then, of course, police and fire.
$73.39 is the total impact fee, and then $36.18 is just the senior portion.
but that's at Three Ponds, is it the
Yeah.
same for this one?
So that's what.
It would be universal.
Decide.
That's the same price.
Same price on everyone?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're putting in?
Right.
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 Well, no, it starts with the basic amount of impact fees, and then it's proportioned according to the formula.
Okay.
Per
And the
department.
formula is a percentage of the cost of the structure, or?
No, it's a flat fee, so I believe it's for a single family dwelling, it's one rate, for commercial it's another, and then for 55 and older, it's a third rate.
So I would like to make a motion that we reduce the impact fees for this particular piece of property minus the school portion, or the 3618, or whatever that number might ultimately be.
So let's find out what the school portion is, but you're okay with reducing it by that amount?
That's correct.
So that's what it would be, then the fee due would be 3618.
And do I have a second? Or discussion? You can't second your own, sorry.
No, I just, have to be elected first. Someday maybe.
That's on the hand go.
Maybe something soon.
My question is though, has the impact fee ever been waived in the past?
It has prior to the.
Those are all the instances in the last, since.
So my question would be, what situation or what qualifications were there that allowed it to be waived?
It was my understanding that any lot that was recorded prior to 1991 would be not charged impact fees. Of course, the regulation, or the RSA, was changed in 2017, and if that's different, I'm unaware of it.
Okay.
Any new home on a lot created after 2001 would be subject to the impact fees. Lots in existence prior to ordinance passing were vested.
So 2001 was the cutoff date.
Right, but they did pay an impact fee in 2017 when they built the original.
The original
home. So
home,
now
This is another
This is
dwelling.
another accessory unit on top of that.
But you keep saying dwelling, it's not. There's only one dwelling on the lot.
Yeah,
It's an
They're
accessory.
not gonna be living in the
It's an
same
accessory.
house,
No.
so it's gonna be two different dwellings.
but
It's just attached with
It's
a
an,
breezeway.
it's an accessory dwelling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
accessory.
it is an accessory dwelling, but the bottom line is it's going to end up the possession of my daughter and son-in-law.
As stated earlier, if the property is sold, it's sold as an entire unit.
That's all,
Yeah.
how it goes together.
Well,
I'll second your motion for reduction by the school. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No, I'll go.
You're all set?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're good to go for that 36,
So
18?
7339 minus 3618?
No, 3618 is what would be due.
Oh, 3618.
I thought it was 3016 off the school's portion.
No, 3618 is what the impact fee is due.
Oh, all right. What's the
After-
7,339?
Minus
The
the school.
original.
After the school.
Yeah.
So I'm saying,
So your number is 3618.
Is that right? So it's 3618, is that? I want to make sure.
so that 3618 is
So he's gonna
police,
make this
fire,
37.
library.
Yeah.
Where else?
Everything was
but school.
3618, so due amount
Well,
should
those
be
are the only four
No, this is
impacts.
the due amount.
Alright, so police, fire, library, school.
No, it's not, this is the senior portion, this is the
Okay.
appropriation.
Okay, yeah, so 3618 is what
Is the amount due, and when is that, how is that paid, when is that paid?
It's typically paid when the building permit's pulled.
I would come in tomorrow with my check.
Oh,
Oh, your check.
You would, your check,
Your-
okay.
If you just hit the
No. It's new. New accessory, so.
Alright, it is what it is, I hate that question, that it is what it is. 'Cause I have no further recourse, correct?
No, I think you got the best possible
No, I think you're in good shape.
result.
I mean, that's just how they're,
Yeah,
the impact fees were put in what year did we put these in?
2001.
2001,
and
so-
they were revised in 2014?
17.
17. And my daughter built her house and paid
2017.
She paid 6840.
Yep, 6830 and change, I believe.
Alright, 6830.
So she was to pay today, if she was building
She'd
it
be paying
today, she'd be
73.
paying 70.
3 something.
7339.
369.
It's 509 more.
Okay. 3618 due to town of Brentwood.
Never take you out to dinner.
I'm gonna write that down.
So is that a motion?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
What else do we have?
Should I tell you about the conference table? I probably.
Oh, yes, conference day.
All right, so here's what happened. I told you last week that
It's Bruce's fault.
the SST got a little behind because they had some projects that had to be completed for grades, so that our table got put behind those projects. School ended. The table is basically done. The only part that's not done is the wheels need to be attached, and I told him today, that's critical. We need to have the wheels because none of us are gonna move this massive table, okay? We're not hiring people. The other problem that happened since school is over, there's a new business office coming into this place, there's a new business manager, there's a new principal, and so he's been put on hold with any more expenditures. He can't use any of the equipment anymore, like the trailer and so on. So what I proposed to him, and I said that I needed to get the approval of the board, is that I would go with him tomorrow, as early as tomorrow, but certainly before the end of the week. Go get wheels, have him attach the wheels. I talked with Bruce about making arrangements to getting the table taken from the SST to custom cabinetry. They're gonna do the finish work on top of the table. Hopefully we can do that next week. I'm coordinating that with Bruce. What I need is for the board to say, yes, it's okay for me to go forward.
Yes.
I don't know what the wheels are gonna cost, but they can't be a whole lot of money. And Bruce has offered to donate money if we have to, but I think that we should pay for that. I think the board should pay for that. So what I wanna do is just move forward with the table, get the wheels, get them put on, get the table moved over to custom cabinetry, get it finished and get it here, hopefully by the end of next week.
I agree with what he just said.
Thank you.
He's making a motion,
That's
you're
a
making a
motion.
second.
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
All right.
Hey, Bill, when you see the tables, take a snapshot of it.
Yeah, I will.
Some
Or
of the
if
lace-
you wanna come with me.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of logistics, if you say it's 3 inches thick, that's be one.
It's a big.
A large table.
It's
Yeah, you're being recorded, so no sweat.
Just to
12
see if
feet long.
maybe sometimes the legs are, of course, they're bolted on, but they can be removed, so just so we could understand for the finished people.
Might be easier to move it that way.
Yeah, just to keep it
Okay,
going.
I'll ask him tomorrow.
For a picture, take a picture.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that. That might be the easiest solution, is to take the legs off, bring it over to custom cabinetry.
Yeah, I'm just thinking how they would move it around in the spray booth, you know, how.
Yeah, okay, good idea, that's a good suggestion.
Getting
Okay.
back to the notes, Karen wants to take a vacation. I vote against that.
I couldn't.
I'll make a motion, she can take a vacation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Ken abstains.
What time do
No.
you wanna meet that week?
Is that an off week?
It generally,
Sort of.
historically, has always been an off week,
Off
but
week.
now with your new schedule, that is a meeting week.
Well,
Oh,
I
so
think we
it's
should
first-
meet at 3 to accommodate the.
What time does Gloria go home?
Gloria, well, if I'm out, she stays until 4, because she's gonna stay until the office is closed. So if you wanna meet at 6, then I would ask Andrea if she would do the minutes, because otherwise, there's not enough hours budgeted for Gloria to work 8 to 4 plus stay for the meeting and then work Friday too.
No, seeing how it would normally have been an off week, let's just continue it and do it at 3 or 4.
Well, then we changed it to first or fifth and 3.
Well, we can alter that. I mean, it's a one-time deal.
Yeah, we could.
You could also meet at 4.
Yeah, 4's
Three,
fine with me.
Or 3, what was the other one?
3, we met at 3.
It just depends on whether or not I'm available at that point, so.
So let's make a decision and
Let's give it a meet
decide.
the week before instead.
You can do that too, if you want.
At 6, I don't know, it's up to you guys.
We could
But I
post it,
just
you
need
want
to
to do
know
the
what
week
time so I
before?
can figure, because Gloria's never been to a meeting before, so if she's gonna do the minutes, I want her to sit in a couple of times
Yeah,
before.
I'm flexible. I can come at any time.
Right now, I could come anytime, but that may change very soon.
Are you gonna get a job?
No, you may be getting the wheels built.
So,
That's right. it might
So
be-
let's hope he
might
gets
be
a
searching
job.
For wheels.
so what's the thoughts?
I don't care, I think I'm available.
Either way, if you wanna meet at 3, we can meet at 3, or we can just have it as an off week, or we can just,
No, let's just meet at 3.
We'll meet at 3, so that week we'll do it at 3 o'clock.
It could be a work day, And that might be a great opportunity to,
For Gloria to take notes.
Yep.
Well, no, she went. Andrea would never do that.
No, Gloria can do the 3, I don't want, Gloria can't stay
Okay.
for the 6.
okay.
So on the 30th of July, we're meeting at 3.
Is that
How
the
about
date?
June?
No, this is
July.
It's July.
Oh,
30th of
I can't
July,
keep up.
3 p.m. What about June? What'd you say about June?
I don't know anything.
It's July 30th?
No,
Yeah.
June.
We're gonna talk about, conservation hired Paul Murdo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
so the Conservation Commission hired someone to do a map for them. That person is going out of business and is worried about the legal liability of maintaining that contract. So he's offered to exchange the maps to the town and would like to just request we issue a legal waiver that he's exempt from any errors or omissions.
Whole honest.
And we've never paid him anything, so it would just be the cost of what it would cost legal to draft that memo.
Got that? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we do that.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Okay. Then we have, does it have to go to non-public?
No,
That
I would
one?
do that one.
That's
Should
not
just
public.
accept it, so that way.
Unless we're accepting it,
Yeah,
then
we
we
are.
have to go to non-public.
No, it's accepted.
All right, so employee issue
Kathleen.
extension to 7/9.
Good night,
We
Kathy.
have a motion.
Or you can.
Who made the motion?
Ken makes a motion, who seconds it?
Did I second it?
Yeah, you did.
Bill seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Oil and gas lock-in?
Yes.
It's for next year.
Um,
Price already?
So Hartman has agreed that if you lock in the next couple of days, they will match this year's pricing. So $2.55 a gallon fixed for oil, and then 24 cents over rack for gas and diesel. Just said to lock it now. He said that this is the lowest you're gonna get.
Yeah. I'll make the motion
I
to
got my
accept
annual
those
pump
rates.
from the
Do I have a
supermarket.
second?
So $2.55 oil, 24 cents over rack, with market rate for
Gas and
gas
diesel.
and diesel. Yeah, I think we're probably good at that.
Yep.
This is a crap.
So we had a
shoot.
motion.
This is a crap shoot.
Do we have a second?
What do you think? Do you think that's reasonable? No. You don't know.
Have you bought oil lately?
For residential rates, it's $2.77. if
That's
that
correct.
makes a difference.
I paid $2.68.
Well, Buxton has it posted for $2.49 on their
I
site.
could get it for less.
$2.49 posted right now, but that's not,
That's
you're
not
gonna lock it in.
No, but I haven't locked in, I
So
don't
do
lock
we
in
get more
until
than one
July.
bid, or is that just the only bid we have?
We had historically been with Buxton, and I would price it out between the two vendors. Hartman generally matches.
Buxton got sold out to
Right.
Dead River.
Dead
Right,
River.
right.
And they ended up being
Right.
more expensive
So-
last year.
Yeah, last year they came in higher, and then we also got a quote for propane from AmeriGas from the thing.
It's always a crapshoot when you
Absolutely.
project out, but that seems like
But Hartman generally has lower prices. They
I
come to
use
us.
people out of down south someplace, and for 13 years, this is the first year they're asking me to lock in. They have never in the past locked in. So we anticipate an issue. And if the Iranians keep doing what they're doing,
well, we're self-sufficient, we don't depend on this.
So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Anybody opposed? Then you're good.
Yeah.
okay, we have an issue with mowers that belong to the town that we've been trying to sell for several years.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to waste. So I'm gonna recommend that we accept an offer from Mr. Quinn Montagari for $500 for a specific machine that does not operate and is currently obsolete, and he intends to use it for parts.
Second.
We got a second.
I'm abstaining.
I agree.
You,
So let's call for a
So
vote.
all in favor?
aye.
Anybody opposed? And I'm abstaining. And that's for the Ferris.
Ferris, no, right?
Wayne wants to keep the Kubota, which is 18+ years old.
So the other one we sell for parts, just throw it in the dumpster.
The Kubota?
No,
The Ferris
the
one.
Ferris one.
So Quinn, I'll let him know, he can come see Karen and figure that out.
Yep.
This is an appointment slip for Wayne Allman for an alternate member cemetery trustee for 3 years.
Do I have a motion?
For where?
Cemetery.
For cemetery
Oh.
trustees.
You good with that?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
This is a wetlands permit application for them to do the bridge on the South Road project for conservation.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Anybody opposed? And it just needs one signature?
Yep.
What's this sign here for?
Oh, probably just please.
We also had, and I gotta figure out how the board wants to address this. There was, Robert, Stevens?
Bob Stevens.
Bob Stevens had requested to be,
An alternate?
the alternate to the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
And I know typically they go to the meeting, there are several meetings, and then the chair recommends it, but I know we've had an open position. How long has that position been open for?
I don't think.
They can have up to 5 alternates. They
We have
four.
plenty of alternates. I don't think it's
So-
been open for.
Okay.
Just tell me.
So I was gonna say, do you want him to go to the meeting, or do you want him, or should I be making a motion to appoint the alternate that's open?
I thought we
Well,
said.
shouldn't the conservation do that?
That's what I wanted to find out.
Yeah, I thought he should go, I thought we recommended he go to a couple of meetings and meet with them and
Okay.
then
Did
see if
he
he's
come
still
to the last
interested.
meeting?
No,
No.
but I think the conservation should do that and then you decide.
Make the recommendation, okay, okay. So if we can send it, I think you already did,
Yeah.
so, sure, I think, okay.
This is an abatement for Paul and Josephine Brown. They were at the meeting a couple of weeks ago with Jim. So this is to reduce their taxable valuation from 274.2 to 233.9
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Where is that?
on Lake Road.
That's
59
59 Lake Road. That's the
Remember the
one
couple that was here a couple weeks ago?
Jim talked to us about it.
Yeah.
Is this the
Yeah,
pool?
oh, yeah,
Is this the
okay.
pool?
No, this was
No.
some adjustments with,
A building that didn't exist.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah,
square
yeah, yeah,
footage.
square footage.
Right.
So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Oh, it's all.
This is for a vet credit application. This is a person that's already receiving the credit. Her husband's passed, so this is the surviving spouse paperwork. So that she can maintain the credit.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Says, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We signed the wrong one, sorry. We signed the sorry. I signed the wrong section.
Oh, your printed name's supposed to be there.
Yeah, that's, sorry. I left
I
enough
didn't see the
room.
red arrow in the middle.
I left enough room for it. so-
That's why you're
okay.
supposed to.
I don't follow our orders.
This is the annual lease agreement for the blacksmith for the rec center, $500 annually. They've already paid the money, but we haven't deposited until you approve that.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And do I sign all these?
Well, yeah, one is for you and one is for them.
And so it only needs
Just
one
one
signature. What else we got?
Documents.
Keep going through the middle of it.
So we've all done all that. Anything else?
Okay.
Oh,
Back in.
I'm gonna have Rebecca come on up.
Then I got to speak.
Well, she,
It's okay for me to call you Becky?
Yes, it is.
Becky gave me a letter. She wants to have the select board address the regional associations aspect of it with having, like a committee set up.
Or.
To discuss how we would move forward with continuing to keep it in the budget or not.
Charitable
How we're gonna do that.
contributions.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that's that regional associations line that's in the budget. And I think it was, is it Liz,
Liz McConnell
Liz
wants
McConnell
to be
wants to
on
be
it.
part of it.
Michelle Sadut would like to be on it. I think some of the issues are that the items that are in the budget, we really don't even deliberate and think about, and that amount keeps creeping up without us doing any due diligence on the value of those associations. I think charitable work is great, but I think as this creeps up and put a lot of pressure on all the taxpayers, we should really make a rational decision as to how we deal with this. I know they can come to us, but every year there was, what, another 7,000 asked for this year.
Well,
It was
see, I
already
had that on my
15,000.
notes to bring up, because we talked about it, you know, we were gonna form an organized,
And we haven't yet. so.
and we haven't, and it'll be budget time before you know it,
Right.
so we need to
Right.
do,
October will be here before we blink.
Yeah.
right, so we need to, I had that to bring up.
Yeah,
I think we have to be careful in the appointments. It should only be one person from the from the budget committee on it.
Mhm.
We don't need, we don't wanna narrow our
Well,
avenues.
Michelle would be from the budget committee.
Right.
And then you probably should have a selectman, so it's kind of like that,
I think Phyllis would be an excellent representative.
Well, you're offering, why don't you do it? I'm offering everybody else.
Well, I happen to have different views than this end of the table.
I would do it, but that's me, but that's up to you
Well,
guys.
because I
Yeah,
thought you'd
let's
be
let
good, because
Bob,
you're the one that
Bob's the one that's
wants to
leading
make
the
it,
effort, so let's go.
so I think you
I
should.
nominate Bob.
No, he's on the budget committee. I can't
So what?
go. No,
He's a
into it.
select-
He's only a selectman's representative.
I can't do
So,
it.
But he's the one
So-
that.
so
Vote against
here's,
it.
here's
I
the
nominate
thought, we
Bob.
have a motion, we have a second, and we go from there.
Where's the motion?
I made a motion to nominate Bob.
I second it.
Okay, let's vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody
No.
opposed?
One abstention.
One abstention, I'm
2,
abstaining.
4, and you abstain,
But-
so it's
And
2-1.
then we have to know about forming this advisory committee.
advisory committee.
Are you guys all set for forming an advisory committee? I mean, I'd be for having two selectmen on it personally. but that's me.
I thought we had decided that we were going to set an upper cap number and use.
We requested at the town meeting if
And
somebody
the
wanted to
town-
have advisory on it,
Right.
and nobody wanted to make a decision on that. We didn't.
So we didn't do that.
No,
We
didn't.
just kind of
No, we
tabled it.
kind of left it, we
Yeah, we left
form a
it.
committee
Let
to
the
figure
committee,
out whether
let
we're
the
gonna
town form a
put them all
committee.
back on the warrant like they did years ago, or,
Or do it
Or
the other.
decline,
And-
or do research, or
Yeah.
do some, have a system, have a real system that evaluates.
So we have a budget committee member, a select board member.
Need
a
some people from the
request from
public.
which you
That's
have to
you, right? So
Which-
that's
Yes,
3.
which, and we have our town, our rep. Yes.
The selectmen have been dealing with this for the last, since I've been
Several
coming to the
years.
meetings.
Several years, yeah.
Is there no will with the board just to rescind the selectmen's policy and have these groups go out and get their warrant article like it was done years ago? And then the selectmen, if they
That's a-
choose, based on the recommendation of the town's town administrator, that there's certain ones that the select board should sponsor, then you guys do the hard work and decide which ones should be sponsored, and let those groups go out and get their signatures and bring them to the town.
Well, I
This
think it's-
automatic
The
putting
automatic
them in
is
the
the
budget,
issue.
and then it just keeps
Yeah.
creeping. You're creating a charitable organization with our tax dollars.
Yes.
Correct.
And this all goes back to a policy that the select board adopted, I don't know, 15 years ago, which you have the power to rescind.
Right, and we do, but I would like to have, and I think one of the discussions that we've had multiple times is I'd like to have an advisory board do some research on it, do the due diligence, and kind of give us, here's our options of what we should be doing. So we're doing it the right way.
But
Instead of
Rebecca's
making
operative
it-
word was research.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's important. So in other words, you take away the emotion, somebody comes in
Yes.
crying and get on the
Yes.
floor, and then everybody goes, but take the emotion out of it,
Yeah.
let these guys do some
Because,
research.
I mean, by doing that research, I think you're gonna find some stuff on some of these, and I like the fact that Liz McConnell wants to be part of it, and to me, it's, you know, you get your reps involved, and there's a bunch of other stuff that goes along with it, and I'm not familiar with charitable organizations except for what I donate to, so.
Before we start a committee, can I send Sue the budget and she can go through, I mean, there's a handful of them that I know that we refer people to all of the time, and have her go through and see which ones are the most beneficial from the welfare side and see what that number looks like.
I think that would be
Because
part
I
of the
think that would
information
be,
the
that would be
committee
part
would
of
need
the
to have.
information.
far reduced from
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this 15.
I'm gonna reverse myself and volunteer.
So we'll have you on the board?
Yes.
Okay.
And only one member from the budget committee.
And one from the select board?
Well, why
see,
would we
I
have more
personally
than
think they ought to
selecting
be
one?
all on the warrant and let the people vote for them.
See, then Phyllis, it's all about emotions, and it's not about facts.
Yep.
No,
That's-
because like Becky, they get up and they give their facts. If they don't give any facts, they don't get any money. People will vote it down.
You need
I
another
think it needs to
volunteer
be
offset the one
in
that
written
just
form,
volunteered.
a little bit of information about each charity, to
I'll
understand
volunteer.
how well, charities are rated by how well they perform, how much of their money actually
It
goes to
goes to
their
the-
charitable
right,
purposes,
right.
and how much goes to overhead
Right.
and marketing and all that
Right,
stuff.
right.
I think we have to understand as taxpayers whether we want to,
Give-
what organizations we might want to support, and whether we even want any of these on
Right.
our budget.
I also think it makes it difficult when they're all on the warrant
Yes.
because everyone that has town meeting on that day, those organizations can't send a representative to every single one of those town meetings. And historically, if they don't send a rep, they don't get the funding.
Do they send a letter, or what do they typically do?
I mean, they all send a letter, but it's
It's
There's
pretty
not a
pro
lot of
forma.
meat to it.
No, it doesn't have any meat. I
No,
think we have to
because
do
they're
the-
used to having it automatically renewed
right.
every year.
Yeah.
And we made that decision years ago, that if they were on the warrant for 3 years, then we don't have to, they don't have to go through the process again. I think we probably ought to go revisit that issue and say, look, if we're gonna be making charitable donations with taxpayer money, we need to see you, we need to know what you're gonna do with that money,
Yeah.
and we need to approve that expenditure of money. I think it's a really good idea that you get that information from welfare, because that would be information that this committee that's being formed now it'd be useful for them to have that information. We know that those people are getting a benefit from the town, and it's probably saving the town money. These other charitable organizations, they may also be getting a benefit to the town, and they may also be saving us money, but we really don't know that. And until we can put our hands around that and say, look, this is good money spent, and it's, money that's worthwhile for the taxpayers to spend. However, having said that, I gotta tell you, when I go to the town meetings, I want the town to say, yes, spend our tax money that way. I don't hear that overwhelming clamor from the town meetings to say, yes, use our tax money to spend, make charitable contributions. So I think we need to really think hard about whether we wanna have any kind of automatic charitable donations
Yeah.
going out. I
Do we
think they
need to rescind that vote, that policy that was made?
Well, I think to answer Butch's question,
best practice.
I believe ultimately what currently is on the books will be removed and a new policy will be installed.
But I think the advisory
Yes.
would give us
Would
the
that give that
recommendation for the right
recommendation,
policy.
Yes.
Yes.
So
And I think
before
it's
we,
beneficial to have an advisory committee.
yeah,
Yeah.
before we start changing policies, I think that this committee needs to take a look at it, get some information, and bring it back to the board and say, here's what we think should happen.
Mhm.
And then we'll make an informed
So
decision
we
as
have a
opposed to.
motion to create an advisory.
Yep.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we have to figure out who we want on the board to represent it.
Well, I
Ken's
think-
willing to do that. We already had a motion for me. Doesn't matter to me either way, how you wanna do it. Do you wanna have 2 selectmen? Do you want one? What do you
Well,
want?
I think because it was your idea,
You need to
to
be on
cap it, that you need to be on it.
Well, I just don't think we need 2 selectmen. We need 2 different frames of mind. If you have 3 public members or 4 public members, 1 selectman, 1 budget committee person, I believe you got a full staff.
Well, we already
Well, you
made,
know,
we already
Karen
made a
got
motion and
honest
voted
when
to
it
have
came
Bob be the
to-
representative from the select
Yes.
board.
When was that done?
That was done before you volunteered. That was done a couple of conversations ago.
Yes. we
I
do.
made the motion, Phyllis seconded it, we voted 2-1 to have Bob
And then
be the
maybe even
representative.
Sue, our welfare person, to be on it too, right?
Right.
I
And then
think that would
Karen,
be good. Karen wanna be on it?
Sure.
because she handles a lot of the welfare stuff too,
Well,
right?
I know Karen Rapinotis wanted to be on it.
And Liz McConnell,
Liz McConnell wanted to be.
So
And
you're
Michelle
only-
Inoki.
Mhm.
Karen who? Who's the other?
dropping yours.
she's like a-
Karen Rapinotis.
So if you only have 1 selectman, that would be
Guess which?
7.
You guys voted to form a committee. Could you articulate what the charge of that committee is exactly? Because I've heard a couple of different ideas. One about, there's this cap that you've alluded to. There's another talk about rescinding the policy. So what exactly are you charging the committee with?
The committee's gonna be charged with coming up with a proposal for us of
How to handle it.
how to handle these and what the policy should be for handling those going forward. And what's the recommendation from them of, I would like to see if someone's coming before us to ask for us to give charitable donations, that they probably would get that information to us, so maybe we can give it to like an advisory committee, so they can the town can have the due diligence done on that specific organization, so we can actually see if that's an organization we wanna support or,
I think we need to have, put one of the results of this committee's work should be a form that asks for certain information about each of these charitable organizations. So everyone who's coming, who's coming before us, we have an even playing field of the information we have
Good, Beth.
and the value. So we have an equal basis to make these recommendations.
Well, that would be your
That would be-
recommendation, Joe.
Yes.
So that would be something that, I guess, is that advisory would be able to advise
That's
us
correct.
of
Yes.
where do we wanna move forward at this point? Because it has been a sticking issue for, like you said, several years.
Yeah.
Since I was on I've been on the select board now for
What was the issue when we?
5, 6 years, and I was on the budget committee for 3 terms, and that was an issue back then, so, for the last 15 years.
So let me see
Are you
if
still
I
putting a
have.
cap on it? I
I
think that should be.
guess it would be up to the advisory,
I
yeah.
think that should be
Yeah.
discussed in your advisory committee.
Yeah, and that would be something that I think the advisory would have to look at.
Because it gets a little out of hand.
I think research or information, adequate information in each organization should be required, so that it can be evaluated. I think all options are open, whether it's a cap or whether it's everyone comes to the warrant, or whether they're not going to be in the budget at all.
So what I have is that the committee is to research and recommend policies related to charitable donations.
Yes.
Okay, and what we have on that, who we have so far, and maybe I don't have this right, Liz McConnell, Michelle, Bob, Becky, Sue. from
Karen,
Drop it out is,
Karen,
you have to, because she won.
we just have to reach out to her and ask.
Because at town meeting,
And you,
Yeah, but that makes 8, if you have 2 selectmen
so
on
I've
there.
got, well, no, we don't have 2 selectmen, we have Liz, Sue,
Oh, so Karen's
Karen,
not on there?
Michelle, Bob, and Becky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you, 7, that's 7.
You better go with an odd number.
Yeah.
So that's 7, he's got 7.
Sorry, I eliminated.
That's all I
Well, if we
know.
go Sue, the welfare person.
That's quite
So
all
we
right.
have
Sue,
one
the welfare
selectman,
person.
I
one
will
budget
eliminate
committee,
you in the future.
one budget committee member, one select board
That's-
member, and
I
then.
believe that's a perfect mix.
Okay.
Is that a good mix?
I think
Yeah,
so.
that's.
And by having the welfare director, I think.
Yeah, I
would be
think
a-
that's good.
Well, do we really want to expose her to that, or should we just solicit the information from her based on her client list?
I think he's making a good point.
If she's interested, we'll ask her to be on the committee. If she's not, we'll just get the information.
But then you're down to 6.
And then we'll recommend a 7th person if she doesn't want to do
Can always make an alternative to the alternative.
Well, how about somebody from the planning board?
Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
But there's just one question, if you haven't, I don't know what Karen, I think Karen spoke at town meeting, was she representing a charity? I thought she spoke to
Was she
the.
Representing Children's
yeah,
Chambers
she
Fund.
was, yeah.
What?
The Children's Chambers Fund.
Yeah.
So it might be a little problem
Might
if
not
you're a
have
voting
her.
member and you were one of the.
I think that's an excellent
Probably
point.
not a
Someone
good
who
idea.
represents the organization
Really?
should not be on this
Or a
committee.
voting member, she could
A
come
voting
and,
member.
she could come and talk, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
I still have I have a problem with that.
All right,
And then
well,
if Sue doesn't want to do it, we have 5, so that's fine.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we still have Ken.
And we have Ken. Ken could be an alternate.
Oh, you don't want me on this committee,
Why not?
because my views are totally different than yours.
That's nothing wrong with
That's
that.
And yours.
That's
the
the
whole idea.
That's the
Yours.
beauty of an advisory.
That's the idea, to have everybody's views
I
represented.
want a consensus.
Well, I couldn't get the emotion out, as my friend from the planning committee thinks, that there should be no emotion.
Well, we'd rather have factual information to
Yeah.
consider when we're making a decision.
Well, then exclude me like
When
you just did.
When emotion comes
I
into
made you
the
alternate.
equation, you lose.
Any grants are not made with emotion, they're made based on facts.
Emotions
and
are
values, and that's
tough.
what we want.
That's
Hey,
right.
First
ball game's
strings are
starting,
tough.
let's go.
I have a motion to make.
So go ahead, so.
That's called adjournment.
Well, we gotta wait,
Yet.
I still gotta get them up.
Are
And
we
she's still
okay?
here. Yes,
Are we
yeah.
okay?
Yeah, anything else that you
Okay,
have?
so someone has to convene this committee and lay out the framework for what we're going to do.
Yes.
If we have an October budget
Cycle.
issue coming up, then we have the summer to do this.
That's correct.
So we probably will
Right
have a
away.
series of 4 or 5 meetings over the next.
Well, you probably have until
4 months.
mid-December to really formulate, because
Okay, you're stretching it out, but if it's in the budget,
If it's in the budget, it's still, the budget and stuff, I
Yeah.
don't think will be finalized. They don't, the budget committee doesn't come in
February.
until October, so they don't really start looking at this stuff until
Okay.
December to February.
Are they starting October at budget meeting?
They'll start in October, but they're not
Yeah,
gonna
they may
approve
not
like
get to
these
that
things until,
particular
they won't
issue.
get to these, cause there's warrants and everything else that go into these whole
well,
things
it
in
will take some
January.
time
so-
to do research as well and to
Yeah.
kind of see
Yeah.
what's out there,
So
so.
there's a longer leg on it.
Okay, okay. I'm just glad that you're going to organize this committee. I think it's important.
Yeah. So I guess we'll have to reach out to those people and hopefully everyone has an email.
I have theirs. I have
Okay.
Michelle's emails.
Okay, so we can reach out to them.
Okay.
Perfect.
So are you gonna pick a date to start, or are you gonna?
Well, I'll send an email.
Gotta
to
Send an
them.
email, just confirm everyone's
Yeah.
interested, and then we're meeting next Tuesday, so we can find out, okay, this is when everyone wants to do it. And I'll just put that on the list of the other stuff.
Could you tell me the people again for your,
Liz McConnell, Michelle, Bob, you, Karen, and
Sue. Yeah.
I think people are gonna get upset if they don't have somebody
from
from some taxpayers.
I'm a taxpayer.
Becky's a tax, well, all the people on this, everybody's a taxpayer who's on that list.
Well, Karen's
Karen's not, that's okay.
So she has zero motion.
We'll waive,
But she
we'll
has
waive her
engagement
requirement
in
to be
the,
taxpayer.
with the welfare and the process, the whole
Exactly,
thing,
sure.
so. She
Yeah.
brings insight that I can't get anywhere else.
Well, nobody here has it between her and the
Welfare
welfare.
person, yeah.
That's it.
Right.
They're the two that are basically gonna,
Okay,
so we gotta start, but we'll
Okay.
send out the email and just
Okay.
confirm interest, and
thank you.
then we'll get back to you. Thank you.
Hey, on the subject of emails, now, you guys all have town
Yeah.
email addresses, right?
Correct.
Can those be put on the website so that?
They are.
we know how
Are,
to-
and
Yeah.
they're hyperlinked.
Yeah.
Are they?
They are.
Oh,
I just know how to use an iPhone, what is a hyperlink? Maybe you can ask Wayne.
Just click it, it goes.
It's automatic.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Nice. All right. Anything else?
The Conservation Commission has put in parking spaces.
Yeah, they were doing that today.
Yeah, and as I advised them earlier, and they have found out now on their own, that could very easily be a pond where they put the parking spaces in. But they've put enough dirt and fill and rocks in there that people should be able to park in there. Hallelujah.
But it's not drained properly, or?
It's wet. It's always wet. It's wet until the end of July, the beginning of August, and that's if we don't get rain, like we've been getting rain this summer. I use the term summer loosely. It's always wet, and when they started to clear it and put smooth it out, they realized that it's very, very wet. So they put a lot of fill in there today and a lot of rocks. And I think people are gonna have to park on the rocks, because I don't think there's any way else to create that space.
Or we're gonna be pulling people out.
Correct, and we almost had to pull out the tractor today, so it's pretty bad there. So I think they've done as good as they could do to create some parking spaces. And the other point to remember, as I told Wayne and Jeremy this afternoon, people have been parking on the side of the road for 20 years. It's never been a problem before. So they can still park on the side of the road if they're not comfortable going off the road. Still available.
Is there trees around where you can hook up a winch and pull yourself out?
There used to be, but they cleared those trees and now you're on your own. There's enough,
I have a
there's
winch, so.
rocks, but the space it's solid enough that you can park
Okay.
there. But I'll be walking.
We're doing the Boston Post cane on Thursday at
Oh,
1
good.
o'clock
At the nursing home.
at the nursing home. I didn't know anyone would come.
Is the families okay with us showing up, right?
Well, they had questions about you, but everybody else was approved.
Well, I'll be able to get in there, but I have a picture ID.
Oh, I can email her. I can email her.
And that brings up another subject, before we forget, the Brentwood newsletter, you did some research on that. When was it?
Oh, yeah.
This is just
In
for
Article
clarification.
12 in 1979, it was just a donation to the Brentwood newsletter. And then it was in the budget for 3 years, and then they automatically just put it in. But that's in the town,
Sounds like
that's in the minutes.
contributions to the
Contribution
children's funds.
And so that was 1979?
1979.
Been around a long time.
When I was still a little kid.
Oh, yeah, right.
Little kid, I'm making a motion that we adjourn.
Well, I
Hold
got
on a
one more
minute.
question.
Are we gonna
Relax.
go over this next meeting? Because I think we all need to be part
We
of
need a
that.
full board for that,
Yeah, as you can see, I've made a few.
You've made a few notes.
I have a few things to discuss, so.
I thought Andy said we should have a special meeting for that.
I think we
Just-
should, because,
I don't know if we
I
can
mean,
just
for
have
me,
one.
I think we should, because as you can see, it's gonna take me a little while to go through these
Okay.
things, but there's a few things I want to talk about.
Okay, and did Wayne ever get an answer about Pickpocket Bridge from Exeter?
Oh, forgot to ask him about that.
Well, that should go on old business for next.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So we'll adjust that. And Butch has got his hand up, so I'm sure.
I want to follow up with what Bill just brought up, that document. Could you enlighten the
I will.
public and the rest of us?
We-
Because I overheard a conversation between two selectmen at the last meeting referring to some document, and I had to kind of blindly make a request to Karen to figure out what the heck you guys were talking about. And it looks like,
Okay,
I'm assuming, because it hasn't been discussed in
let me
in
clarify
front.
for you
What-
very
what's going
quickly,
on?
and for everybody out there in TV land as well. As you probably know, and if you don't know, I'm gonna tell you now, the Budget Committee formed a subcommittee to talk about standardizing process and procedure in town, specifically for the Budget Committee. That has evolved in the course of our meetings, our subcommittee meetings, in that this is a good idea to standardize process and procedure across the board. As a result of those kind of conversations, we charged Karen with coming up with a standard handbook, standardized process for the selectmen to follow, so that somebody could come in behind us and say, hey, how do you guys do things? And go to this book and say, oh, okay, this is how things are run. We're in the process now of kind of reviewing this and coming up with what will be a standard for selectmen in town to follow. It will certainly be available to everybody in the public. It includes ethics policies, it includes how we conduct our meetings, but it's just a general document for how the selectmen should conduct themselves in running the town business.
Versus having, well, we've always done it that way.
Yeah, so we're trying to get to a point where we can say, yeah, this is the way we do things. And everybody, not just the selectmen, everybody should have an opportunity to go in here and say, oh, okay, now we know how you do things. That's what we're trying to do, and that's what this document is. It's a draft, because we haven't met as a full board to kind of say, okay, that's good. You can see I've been through it a couple of times. I have a few things that I want to address with the rest of the board before we finalize the document.
Right, so if I can follow up with a couple of questions. So when did the board give Karen this charge? Because I've been coming to every meeting, and I haven't heard the board discussing this. And other than overhearing you at last week's meeting, I didn't realize there was a substantive document that's been prepared that's not available to the public unless we know to ask for it.
Well, it's not final. It's a draft that we're kind of
And
going through. It's a working document.
This is discussion that started when there was discussion, the end of last year? Was it the end of last year?
Yeah.
The end of last year, and just what's the procedures? I know when Phyllis and.
I'm not objecting to what the board's doing. I want to raise the issue that I've sat through every meeting for the last year and a half.
Right.
And
It's
you've given a charge to the administrative
wants to know what to
assistant.
do.
What to
Right,
do,
speaking
exactly.
for myself, I don't want to speak for Phyllis, but when Phyllis and I came on the board previously, some time ago, there was a class you could go to. That class was eliminated. Doesn't exist anymore for new selectmen. So Phyllis and I felt like, wow,
And I didn't go
there's a
through one.
lot of things to learn when you're running the town. There's a lot of things that we have to be involved with, and a lot of decisions we have to make. We need to know how that occurs. And so, as a result of me feeling inadequate about how do I do this? I've never done this before. I don't know how to run things. So I've been searching for where do I go to find out how do I act as a selectman? What do I have to do? What is expected of me? And so this is a result of those kind of concerns and questions. I'd like to have some document I could put my hands on and say, oh, okay, that's how you do that. And so that's how this evolved. It was an informal request for Karen to can you give us a start? So she's given us a start. And now we're going to go through this starting document and say, okay, good job. I mean, she's done a really good job. There's a lot of good stuff in here for us to be able to follow and do our jobs. There's a few things that I think we could change and make it a little bit tighter. And so we'll get there. It's a draft, we're working through it, and when we get a chance to kind of sit together as a group and say, okay, here's what I think we should do, and I'll either get outvoted or everybody will agree with me, and everything will be hunky-dory, and we'll have a final document, and we'll say to everybody in town, here's the document that the selectmen are going to use from now on to conduct themselves.
And Karen said Ken was the last one to be able to go through that selectmen's training, how long?
7 years ago.
7 years ago. I never went through
I
it.
got it. graduation certificate and everything?
I never went through it.
I hope the board's not misunderstanding me. I have no objection to what the board is proposing to do, but I just want to clarify, has there been a subcommittee of selectmen meeting to form this, or was it
We
charged
haven't
to
even-
the town
No.
administrator?
It's
This
just
draft
been-
has been prepared by the town administrator for the selectmen to review, because there's nothing in your minutes that talk about this.
Right.
Nothing.
Bob and I are on that budget committee, subcommittee, and we thought it would be a good idea for the selectmen to have some kind of
Procedure.
procedure.
And again, I think it's a great idea.
No, no,
Just as
so-
a citizen
so
has
it's
been
kind of
coming to your
informal. We
meetings,
said
there
to
should be
Karen,
some
you know what,
mention in the
Karen?
minutes that you
don't have
charge the
enough
town
to do now,
administrator
so
with
we're gonna
doing
give you
this.
something else to do now. You don't have enough to keep your day busy, so we're gonna give you.
I've
this
been
thing.
coming to your meetings for a
I
year and a
know,
half
I know
because
you
it's
have.
about disclosure
Yeah.
and public access.
Yeah.
And when I
And
overhear at Selectmen talking about this, and you guys all have copies of this, but it's not available to the public, I sit to the meeting and raise this at the public issue. It's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it.
Mhm.
And that's my concern.
Well, this is still a draft, so.
Yeah, but that's not the point, Bob.
No,
You
no, no,
don't
no, 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 I'm
understand.
not done yet. So before you start doing that, remember. I think Karen did some great research when we talked to her about this and said, how are other towns running this thing? And so then she went out, and I think, what town did you find that there was 65 pages?
Guilford, Hancock, I looked at a few different towns and kind of,
And so we said, can you get us this information so we can kind of all start looking at this and say, what do we need to do? Because we don't have any direction, so let's create the direction so that way, if I drop dead tomorrow, somebody else can step in, or if I don't run and somebody wants to step in, it gives you a handbook to go by. We don't have a handbook. I don't even know if we've ever had one, have we?
no.
We've never had one. So is this something that we're hiding from people? No. We're still in the process of creating it. So everything that Karen does on a daily basis, we don't really discuss here. It's just formulating things. So like the advisory committee for the budget committee, it's public, we don't discuss it. The advisory committee that we just approved, it'll be public, but will we discuss it? We might not.
I think the point he's trying to make though is this was a we from the budget committee subcommittee, not a we BOS.
Exactly,
Well,
Karen,
no,
thank you
'cause
very much.
We've been including everybody in any of the email discussions.
I'm
and
not
stuff.
on that email chain,
Well,
thank
you
you.
won't be, because it's still part of us figuring
You're
out. what we
conducting
wanna
the
do.
town's business in private when you do something like this. That's the point I'm trying to make. When you could have said at any meeting that I've been to in the last year and a half,
That's right.
hey, you know what, we need a handbook, we're
We
gonna
have
charge
discussed
the
that.
town administrator with doing that.
I know we've discussed that because Daphne came in here and that was one of her concerns. And that was brought up at that point. I remember that specifically. As a matter of fact, Daphne came in here twice and addressed stuff that was an issue. And that was one of the concerns that was brought up is.
You're misunderstanding what my
Procedures.
complaint is to the board.
I understand your complaint.
I'm just saying, as
but
somebody
I
that
just-
comes to the meeting every week,
It was brought up
I
that
think
we were
what-
looking
you
at.
guys
what
are
we-
conducting town
think
business
what's-
outside of
I-
town
I-
meeting
I
and
think
giving
what's
direction
this-
to the town
this is-
administrator without the full board doing
I think
it.
this is semantics more than anything else.
Perhaps.
We try our best to inform the public and tell everybody what's going on. Sometimes we miss that, but we also don't sit here every week and say, hey, by the way, here's what Karen did on Tuesday and here's what Karen's gonna do tomorrow. This was an attempt by us not to hide anything because clearly, you know, we've kind of put it around and it's a draft document. We don't always say, oh, by the way, here's a draft document that we're considering now, we're not sure we're gonna go with this. That's kind of a working session that we're having. That's what this is now, draft document. We're not trying to hide it or not be open about it. It's just how it evolved, I guess. We didn't sit here and say, well, you know what, we're gonna charge Karen with now writing a draft operational guideline. It's just how it occurred. There are things that happen day to day, week to week, that we don't always address in the meetings. Doesn't mean we're not doing business, doesn't mean we're not trying to do things, and it doesn't mean that we're not gonna share it with everybody when it finally gets done. When this is done, believe me, it'll be shared with everybody in town, whoever wants to read it, whoever wants to follow it, and whoever wants to check to make sure that we're following our own guidelines.
And tonight, we probably would have had a pretty good discussion on this document. Unfortunately, there was an emergency, so Andy had to leave. And we probably would have had a preliminary what's everyone's thoughts on looking at this thing? Again, we haven't had it.
No.
A week?
Yeah, a week. It's been a week.
I think we got it last week, and we said we can't really talk about it until we review it. And I thought we were gonna discuss it. I would assume that this thing's gonna take us probably,
A week.
I would say
More than
longer than
one.
that. I think this thing's gonna take a month.
I
month and a
believe
half.
personally, I believe this will only take one quick review of all the things that I've
I have
highlighted.
some changes in it
Yeah,
too.
I'm thinking it's gonna take a month, month and a half.
Maybe Phyllis has some
Before
additional
we're comfortable
changes,
with
but
it.
I believe if everybody looks at the things that I've referenced in my copy, it'll take about 10 minutes. Everybody will say, okay, that's good, Bill did a good job, and we'll adopt.
Have you
what
looked at
Bill-
it, Ken?
I have indeed.
And how many changes do you think?
Ken may not have as many changes as I do. Apparently not. If you only have 2, I have a couple more.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Well, the guideline's good, but I mean, obviously, this is nothing governed by statute, so it is a guideline, and of course,
Yes,
it's gonna be
that's right.
amended by any board of selectmen in the future.
Correct.
And I agree on like probably 99% of things, but I wouldn't accuse you guys of deciding on town business out of session because you haven't voted on it. I mean, if you wouldn't vote on it privately anyway, you're gonna vote on it at an open public hearing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. And as Ken reminded me today, earlier, this only binds this particular board.
That's correct.
We can't bind
All
future
future boards
boards.
can do their own thing.
And hopefully they'll follow it because this will be such a good guideline for everybody to follow. It'll be something that stays.
Oh my God, you're breaking your arm.
And it was streamlined because I think the initial research that she was finding was like, oh my God, these things are reams of paper.
And they are.
And
Some of them are.
they're huge. Just Karen had to sort through all that to kind of
I mean, they have
customize it.
They have a local officials workshop that we had, and that used to be the Selectmen's Handbook from the 70s. That's 150 pages, and now it's evolved to 300 pages with RSAs and statutes. So this, the only statute in there is 91A really,
Right.
and then the rest of it is.
And I
You
carry my own
you referenced a lot of
I
RSA's
reference
in
the
here,
statutes, but I
so.
don't print out what.
No,
each of them-
but there's good RSA references in this as well, so.
I'd like to reinforce for the 4th time an adjournment.
Okay.
Okay, second, okay.
Well, I was gonna say before I do that,
Oh,
anything else?
The
Because that's how I like to do it.
Can I just mention 2 things? And I
Sure.
probably should have mentioned one when Wayne was here. Given all the rain, we've had 4 to 4-inch deep puddles at the beginning of the parking lot at the Historical Society. The snowplow keeps pushing all the gravel up, and you couldn't get to the porch steps when we had an event last week because the water was so deep in front of the steps. So we just need some fill right there at the front of the parking lot.
Can you reach out to Wayne? So we'll reach out to Wayne and have him
Thank
take a
you.
look at that.
And second is the Historical Society is working with Daphne to put together a welcome packet for new residents in the town. She has the document that has all, where you go for this, where you get your license, how to navigate the town office. But we're going to put in material from all the organizations in Brentwood, have it in a folder, and make that available to give out to new residents. That's what we're
Outstanding
doing.
idea.
Great job.
So that's one of the projects we're gonna contribute to the town.
What a good idea.
How long is that?
I've got documents coming in from organizations probably by the end of summer.
Okay. And how long you guys been working on that project?
It's been discussed for about 4 months since getting around to the churches, the recreation center, Friends of the Library, groups like that. So anyone coming to town has a little bit of a social sense of what's going on.
That's awesome. I
So we're
appreciate you
working on
doing
that.
that. That's great. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
It's been
Motion
made
and
and
seconded,
seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're done. Now I gotta figure out how to turn everything on.
Oh, yeah.
We're still recording, so
This is more entertaining than a movie.
we're just like to sleep. Yep.
Yes, I know.
All right,
This
hold
looks
on.
like a lot, but
Thanks,
part
Carl.
of this is to group